Welcome back to Angie Mac's Little Mites, and welcome back to Boo. This is Boo. She is a Senegal parrot. She was rescued, but from a lovely lady, and I've had her a few years. I wanted to briefly, I wanted to mention today going into pellets, feeding our birds pellets versus seed. Some of the things I've heard about pellets and the pros and cons. Now, again, it's my channel, and without sounding rude, I'm putting my opinion out there on my own experience. And if yours is different, that's fine too. I just don't want people bombarding me with, comments that, I don't mind actually, because that's what YouTube is. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we need to respect that. But this is my personal view and my very personal choice. Now, first of all, I just want to clear things up that, people put their birds on pellets not because they're too lazy. I don't believe that at all. I've heard it said many times. People are too lazy to get the balanced diet and to be cutting up fruit and veg, where you should be giving fruit and veg with pellet anyway. And they're too lazy to do it, so they just give the bird pellets. It's a lot easier, and that's it, it's done. Pellets are a lot more expensive than seed, and I think people give their birds pellets because they want their birds to have the best, the correct nutrition, and they're worried that they're not giving the bird everything it needs. And within the pellet, we're told that is everything that they need. And when I first started feeding my birds pellets, it was a great weight off my mind, because they were getting everything in that little cube. But then when my mother passed away, we inherited her bird Angel, and she was very old, and she had seed. And once the African grey sugar saw the seed, she started refusing to eat the pellets. And we had a lot of problems with it. We mashed it, we disguised it, you name it. It didn't work. And with African greys, they're notorious for calcium deficiency. And I was worried, and that's when I started to investigate the dietary needs of our little soul wings, because she wouldn't eat them. Now, a lot of people think if the bird doesn't eat, just leave it and it'll eat when it's hungry. That is not the case with most birds. If they don't want it, they won't eat it. And birds can and have, I've heard stories, starved themselves to death. That sounds very dramatic. I'm not sure if it's common, but it's possible. So, we can't ignore that. So I started looking at the pros and cons. Not that I had a choice anyway, because every bird that came in, whether they were on pellets or not, once they see others in the flock eating seed, they too refuse to eat. So I then had a problem on my hands and realised that I was going to have to go into the diet a lot further. I was giving veg and fruit, not so much fruit. Fruit isn't good all the time, every single day for your bird parrot. I've done a lot of study on fruit, and there can be a lot of sugars in it, and it can damage and cause fatty liver. So as much veg as you want to, but again, be careful with spinach because it depletes calcium. So I started really looking into the diet seed versus pellet. And this is the conclusion that I came to. First of all, I noticed there was a lot of wastage with pellets. You know, they eat it, they crunch it up, and, you know, all the powder falls on the floor. So I did notice that. With the seed, there was also a lot of waste at times, because the seed has a husk on, and in nature they will dehusk the seed, the shell, and get to it. Some birds swallow the seed, and that's why they need other supplements to help digest their food. Birds in the wild particularly, that's why you'll see them eating grit and things like that. I don't give my birds grit. I never give my budgies grit. They don't need grit. But there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to go mad when I say that. I've never had my budgies on grit. But the seed that I fed my budgies and all my birds, the budgie seed was already dehusked, completely dehusked. And the others have seed which is partly dehusked, because you have to give them that natural yearning that they would have in the wild to pick and eat, etc. And you don't get that with the pellets. Okay, it's not a natural thing for them to be eating out in the wild. So that was the other thing I looked at in comparison, what was more natural. Now, I'm not getting paid for doing this, and if someone offered to pay me, I still wouldn't do it. I will only say what I give my birds because I believe that it's the best. So if your bird is on a seed diet, I'm in the UK, I don't know if they do worldwide, you'd have to check them out, but they're called Tidy Mix. Now, Tidy Mix, it's called that because the seed is, most of the seed is partly dehusked. In that mix, there is everything you could possibly think of. There's fruit, there's veg, you know, there's pulses, there's rice, there's egg food, there's everything. There isn't sunflower seeds in it. It is an amazing diet. I believe it's the best. All my birds are on Tidy Mix, and you know, so that's what I give them. When my cockatiels, when my girls came off of the pellet diet, I noticed they started to get hormonal, which I didn't want. Didn't want egg laying, and I was upset about it. But then I realised that if a bird is becoming that way, that is natural. And that if your bird is becoming hormonal and they're masturbating, which mine do, you know, that is a good sign. Congratulations. Because a bird will not do that unless it is getting the correct diet and it feels safe to do so. So congratulations on that. And can I just add that cockatiels also, when they masturbate, can very much look like males when they do it. So you can't always tell if a bird is male or female just simply by looking at the way they masturbate. So in summary, I found that the seed was a more natural way to feed my birds. But on top of that, I then started adding the multivitamins, which they have a couple of times a week, and the calcium, which they have a couple of times a week. Slightly higher dose for the African grey because they're notorious for, you know, not retaining calcium. So it's personal choice. You know, it's up to the individual. If you are feeding pellet, however, your bird should still be getting fruit and veg. Again, not too much fruit. You know, some people pile the dish up. These are tiny little mites. You know, they don't need half an apple or whatever, you know. And don't forget to take the pip out because they contain arsenic. And I'm going into the mode now where I get worried about everything. But because I've had to study so hard about the dietary needs because they wouldn't take pellets, you know, I've gone into everything I possibly can. So now my birds are on the tidy mix. The other thing I want, you know, I don't want people out there to be upset if your bird will not take pellet. Do not give up, you know, don't feel that you've failed. Don't feel, you know, why isn't it eating it? What, you know, what, it's got to have the best, you know. If it doesn't want tidy mix and it continues pellets and it's continuously refusing, there's no need to panic. There are supplements, you know, that you can add, you know, and make sure they get a balanced diet and a healthy diet. You know, there's many birds that lived off, you know, when I was growing up, surprisingly, they were living off sunflower seeds, which are really not good for birds, but millet, grit at the bottom of the cage with a sand sheet, you know, and they live for years. Probably not as long as they live now, because we've gone into it more and investigated the dietary needs of our pets and found that we were probably doing a lot of things wrong, hence the size of cages and things that, you know, I remember budgies being in, tiny little cages, and I never saw budgies coming out either. They just sat there on a swing, you know, saying pretty Polly, and they had a mirror. So how people have educated themselves, you know, so the diet has become advanced, but I prefer personally to have my bird on the best seed mix that I can find and give supplements, not to replace fruit and vegetables, but just to make sure that they're getting everything they need. The other thing that's a little bit worrying about pellets, but it also applies to seed, is when you go in and look into a dish and you see the bird hasn't eaten it all, a lot of people think, okay, they have enough, I'll either top it up or, you know, leave it till tomorrow. You can't do that with the pellet or with the seed. Pellet does go off, believe it or not. That's why it should come in a foil sealed bag, airtight. The same as seed. A bird will only eat what it wants from that seed. It's a bit like you having a Sunday dinner and not wanting to eat your Brussels sprouts. You know, you'll eat what you want and leave what you don't. And if the next day somebody sets it up again and gives you the same meal, you didn't eat it yesterday because you didn't like it. So you're not going to eat it, you know, tomorrow. The seed has to come out, and it has to be changed. There is ways of, you know, not wasting it. A lot of people, you know, run it through and clean it. I don't go to all that trouble. The seed I have left over that looks pretty good still, but that my little mites have decided they don't want, will go to bird rescue centre up the road, and a lot of it goes out for the birds in the wild, so there's no waste. So a lot of people look at seed and think that's a complete waste. Well, do something with it. You know, put it out for the wild birds or whatever. So again, you know, I keep saying that I'm expecting not very nice comments because I'm giving my personal view on my birds on my channel. I'm not telling anyone not to use pellets, not to have seed. I'm just saying what I've learned and what over the years that I was worried sick that my birds would not accept this pellet mixture, and that, you know, I was going to be hurting them. And you might not know it or not, but pellets are seed. That's all it is. That is seed with supplements, all condensed into the little cubes or the little granules. It's seed at the end of the day. So don't panic if your bird refuses to eat it. You can only try. And, you know, if it doesn't work, it isn't a failure on your part. You know, some birds just don't take to it. And with that, I've been on here such a long time. Me and Boo are going to say bye-bye.